wind on the harbor and rain on the road. Wet promise of winter brings recourse to cold. There's fire in the blood and a fog on Brador. The giant will rise with the moon. 'Twas the same ancient fever in the Isles of the Blest that our fathers brought with them when they went west. It's the blood of the Druids that never will rest. The giant will rise with the moon and crash the glass down. Move with the tide, young friends, and old whiskey are burning inside. Crash the glass down, Fingal will rise with the moon. In inclement weather, the people are fey. 3,000 year stories as the night slips away. Remembering Fingal fields not far away, the giant will rise with the moon. The wind's in the north, there'll be new moon tonight, and we have no circle to dance in her sight. So light a torch, bring the bottle, and build the fire bright. The giant will rise with the moon and crash the glass down. Move with the tide, young friends, and old whiskey are burning inside. Crash the glass down, Fingal will rise with the moon. Cold wind on the harbor and rain on the road. Wet promise of winter brings recourse to cold. There's fire in the blood and a fog on Brador. The giant will rise with the moon.
Hello and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Free Magic Secret Show, where magic is always free. And we investigate forms of magic throughout world history, going all over the globe. And today we're going to be talking about the Druids, because they're fascinating. And Druid magic is fascinating as well. It's rooted in the living earth. It is a very nature-based spirituality, or a form of spirituality, or you could say in a lot of ways, just notions, examples, certain way about to be a druid is like being a jack of all trades, offering your services to the witchcraft or occult or pagan community, whatever have you, as a whole. You're something of a wizardly type, right? You're something of a politician, going between all the different tribes and trying to be helpful to all of them and play the role of some people play the role of the nature priest, the urban priest, or a priestly sort of atmosphere to your details and what you're doing and whatnot and your interactions with people. You try to be a priestly sort of thing, right? And it's complicated, and there's a lot to it. But I want to talk about a feature of Druidry. And this comes from the Druid Magic Handbook by John Michael Greer. And he also put out another book called the Druidry Handbook, which is something completely different. And this is a nice addition to any library on magic, or especially about the Druids. It's pretty essential. But it runs you through a bunch of different rituals and stuff. And one of the things it talks about is the intersection of the Ogham alphabet and the Wheel of the Year with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Now, if you don't know, the Ogham, or Ogham, as some say, they're sort of like what runes were for the Vikings. The Druids had a similar thing, because the Druids never committed anything to writing. It was all committed to memory. And when they did communicate, they were using staves of oak and different trees to kind of scratch different symbols in, which, like I said, were kind of like their runes or whatever. And it formed its own alphabet, and it had its own magical properties, much of which has been lost to time because we know very precious little about the Druids and their inner workings. However, it was, it came with the revival. The Druid revival started in like the 1800s, and it's turned into many things. So we're just talking a little bit here. There was a writer named Robert Graves who made a 13-month Ogham calendar that has been used in modern Druidry, which is, if I'm correct, it's based on the Caligny calendar, because the Druids were, their timekeeping was focused around the moon cycles. So there were like 13 moons in a year, new moons or whatever, full moons or however it goes. Doc doesn't have these things memorized all the time. It's okay, though. So 13 moons in a year, and 13 cycles of those moons equaled a 13-month year in the old Celtic lands. So we're going to just go into that. So it mentions Robert Graves briefly. Look more into him. If some information is missing, I'm sorry, but it will fill in at least the blanks of what we're talking about today. So Graves' 13-month Ogham calendar has seen some use in modern Druidry. But long before Graves came along, Druidry had its own sacred calendar. From the beginnings of the Druid revival, the tradition of watching the summer solstice at Stonehenge provided the anchor point for that calendar. And by the late 18th century, the winter solstice and the equinoxes had been added to create a fourfold ceremonial calendar that followed the dance of sun and earth. This calendar remained standard in the Druid community until the early 1950s, when Ross Nichols and his fellow Druid Gerald Gardner, the founder of modern Wicca, took it a step further. Gardner found references in Irish and Scottish sources to an old sacred calendar with 4 festivals: Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lugnazad. To give them their usual Druid names, midway between the solstice and equinoxes, and he used this fourfold calendar in the first version of his newly created nature religion, then called Wicca, or Wicca. Both men were members of the Druid Circle of the Universal Bond, one of the largest Druid orders of the time, and they knew the standard Druid calendar well. Their inspiration was to fuse the two into an eightfold calendar. According to a tradition current in English Druid circles today, the inspiration for the eightfold Wheel of the Year happened in a London pub after several pints of ale. If this is true, it was not the only important event in Druid history to take place in a pub. The new calendar caught on rapidly, and today most pagans throughout the Western world use the eightfold Wheel of the Year. Many of them believe that this calendar dates back to ancient times. In point of fact, no trace of a ritual calendar based on these 8 festivals, and only these festivals, appears anywhere before Gardner or Murray publicized their version. And the eightfold calendar has accordingly come in for the same sort of criticism as Graves' Ogham system. Once again, though, such criticism misses the point. A ritual calendar, like a magical alphabet, has value because it works, not because it has or lacks a particular historical pedigree. Nichols and Gardner were both expert occultists, and they created something much more potent than a simple calendar. Understood in depth, the Wheel of the Year models every process in the universe of human experience as a cycle of 8 stations, driven by 2 balanced forces moving around a third central pivot. The 8 festivals can be seen as archetypal realms of being, like the spheres of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life used in the Golden Dawn and many other magical traditions. Connect these stations with the 25 fuse of the Ogham alphabet, and the result is the Wheel of Life, one of the core conceptual tools of Druid magic. Like the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, the Wheel of Life defines a set of magical states of consciousness and realms of experience and provides pathways to move from one to another. Both the wheel and the tree have 33 elements, 10 spheres plus 22 paths plus a transitional realm called Dayat, or knowledge, make up the Tree of Life. 8 stations plus 24 paths plus the central grove make up the Wheel of Life. From a deeper perspective, the 2 diagrams are alternate ways of looking at the same set of relationships, and meditating on the relationship between them opens the door to many mysteries. The tree and the wheel are not identical in structure or operation, though, and several crucial differences divide them. One is that the tree is based on a map of space, while the wheel is a map of time. The spheres of the tree are assigned to parts of the Earth-centered cosmos of the Middle Ages. The bottom sphere is the Earth. The 7 above it are the 7 planets known before the discovery of the telescope. The 9th is the realm of the stars, and the 10th represents the divine realm beyond the stars. The wheel, by contrast, follows the cycle of the seasons. Instead of seeing the great realms of existence as worlds far from our own, it pictures them as phases of time that manifest right here on Earth in cyclic patterns. These same patterns appear in smaller cycles of time. For example, the Old Welsh Druid lore divides the day into 8 parts, corresponding to the stations of the wheel, and the lunar cycle can also be divided into 8 parts. All these can be used to time magical workings, and each station is at its strongest when its daily, monthly, and yearly times occur together. The correspondences among these phases are shown in Table 2.4. Samhain is the evening between 9 to 11:59 p.m. Albin Arthwin is midnight, 12 to 2:59 a.m. Imbolc is first light, 3 to 5:59 a.m. Albin Eiler is dawn, 6 to 8:59 a.m. Beltane is morning, 9 to 11:59 a.m. Alben Hirwin is noon to 2:59 p.m. Lunaza is afternoon, 3 to 5:59 p.m. And Alben Eliud is 6 to 8:59 p.m. Another major difference between the Tree of Life and the Wheel of Life lies in the way the process of magical initiation appears on them. The tree shows magical initiation as an upward journey from the lowest sphere of ordinary consciousness, called Malkut in the Kabbalah, to the highest sphere of universal consciousness, called Keter. The wheel, by contrast, shows magical initiation as a continuing cycle around a point of balance, the central grove, from which all states of consciousness can be accessed at once. This echoes some of the core concepts of the Druid tradition. From the standpoint of Druidry, after all, the material world is just as holy as any other, and spiritual practice is not a matter of abandoning one state of being for another, supposedly higher one, but rather of embracing the full potential of what it means to be human and learning to be present in whatever mode of being is most relevant at any given moment. The vision of the process of initiation as a circle also teaches what every magical initiate knows, that the way of initiation has to be walked many times, not just once. The difference between the 2 diagrams, finally, has important practical applications in magical work. The Tree of Life orients the mage towards a single source of spiritual power, the universal consciousness of Keter, but the Wheel of Life places the mage in a relationship with 2 sources, the solar current above and the telluric current below. In one sense, those are represented by 2 stations. Alban Herian, the summer solstice, represents the solar current, while Alban Artwan, the winter solstice, represents the telluric current. This is a simplified model, though. On another level, the solar and telluric currents manifest through each of the stations, and what moves the currents from station to station is the factor of time. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the central grove with half the wheel rising high above you and the other half sinking far below. Above you is Alban Artwan, and below you is Alban Xiron. During the season of Alban Artwan, the 6 weeks or so following the winter solstice, this is an accurate map of the currents. The solar current flows through the station of Alban Artwan, and the telluric current flows through the station of Alban Xiron. 6 weeks pass. The wheel of life turns an eighth of the way around its cycle, and Imbolc arrives. Imbolc is now overhead, Lughnasadh is below, and these two stations mediate the solar and telluric currents respectively. 6 more weeks pass, and Alban Eiler directs the solar current, while Alban Eliud channels the telluric current. In the course of the year, both currents flow through each of the 8 stations in turn. This is the magical meaning of the 8 festivals of the modern Druid year. Each festival represents the point at which the solar and telluric currents shift to new stations on the wheel. The station occupied by the solar current is the festival being celebrated, while the telluric current flows through the station at the opposite point of the wheel. Celtic folklore hints at this double cycle in stories about another world, the world of the fairies or the dead, where the seasons are exactly opposite to ours. This other world lies beneath the surface of the earth, in the realm of the telluric current, and the cycle of its Nufir through the 8 stations forms one of the secrets of Druid magic. The key to this secret lies in the pentagram. You learned earlier that the oak and heather pentagrams allow you to summon Nufir from the solar and telluric currents. I know I'm saying that word wrong. It's NWYFRE. This is the most important use of the pentagrams, but it conceals a more complex and flexible use. The upper point of the oak pentagram and the lower point of the heather pentagram represent the solar and telluric currents and whatever station they occupy at the time the pentagram is drawn. The other points of both pentagrams, in turn, represent the other stations of the wheel. The 3 stations in the solar realm, represented by the upper half of the wheel, are always summoned and banished with the oak pentagram, and the 3 in the telluric realm, the lower half of the wheel, are summoned and banished with the heather pentagram. The 2 stations that stand on the boundary between the solar and telluric realms can be summoned or banished with either one. It's best, however, to use the oak pentagram for the station on the right-hand side, because this one is rising into the solar realm, and to use the heather pentagram for the station on the left-hand side, because this one is setting into the telluric realm. The point that has to be grasped in all this is that the point you use for any given station depends on the season of the year. 6 weeks after Alban Artwan, when Imbolc arrives, the stations shift to the positions shown in Figure 210. 6 weeks or so later, when Alban Eiler arrives, they shift again, and so on around the wheel of the year. This has to be remembered in order to summon and banish the Nuivre, that's the word, of the stations effectively. The Nuivre of the stations effectively. In order to reach the point where you can shape Nuivre effectively through any of these symbols, the elements, pentagrams, stations of the wheel, or Ogham letters, you need to make the transition from theory to practice. This transition begins with basic magical exercises, the subject of the next chapter. And the next chapter is called The Essentials of Practice. But I'm going to let that one be for you folks to investigate on your own. I do hope that some of this stuck in your head or popped in some new concepts and, you study them further. And, the usual thing, as always, hit the subscribe button. When you're drunk at the bar talking to your friends into witchcraft and the occult, be like, yo, here's the hottest unknown magic show on YouTube. This dude has hot rockin' intros, hot rockin' outros, and he's going to buzz in your ear. And he's going to tell you things. And Doc Zeero is going to light you up like a candle. That's where it's going. So, you know how it goes. And thanks for listening, and et cetera, ad infinitum. And as promised, as always, hot rockin' outro just for you. Later, kids.